There's a Cardi B centered course at Howard, and I couldn't agree more because real bitches need to be studied. Don't y'all agree? I don't get it. I just don't understand why rich motherfuckers won't just call an Uber. Why? Why won't you just call an Uber? Imagine somebody forced your family to work for free for 250 years. With that time, they built a company off of that free labor. They passed that company down to their kids. And now their family is rich as fuck. They got generational wealth, and your family's still trying to catch up. That's what we're talking about. Drewski didn't invent dressing up like characters. That's sketch comedy. That's SNL. That's In Living Color. That's Martin. That's Eddie Murphy. Oh, hey, everybody. I'm Dicey, and I just want to thank y'all for being here, because there's some crazy shit going on in the world right now. Actually, what is happening in the world right now? This is the crochet head. I know you lying, girl. You wrong for that. Look at them parts. Ooh. A thing called crochet braid behavior. Crochet braid behavior is when you just in violation. It's nothing cool about crochet braids, right? You just in complete violation. So we'll see who got crochet braid behavior for this episode at the end. Come get this news. Let's get into it. U is for underreported. I thought this was a super cool story. History was just made this month, and not in America for once. Dame Sarah Mullally, she just became the first female Archbishop of Canterbury just this March. And I think, that's kind of like becoming the CEO of the Church of England. Look at her big ass hat and that big ass chair she got. But the wild part is the Church of England has existed for over 1,400 years, y'all. And this is the first woman in the top job. 1,400 years. After that, women been running the choirs, the bake sales, vacation Bible school, raising the pastor's raggedy ass kids, passing out programs, and they just now got promoted. But hey, and her background is actually interesting because, she wasn't some career church politician that just, worked her way up the ranks. She used to be the chief nursing officer in England. So she basically ran nurses before she ran bishops. That kind of makes sense though, because if anybody's qualified to run a church, it's a nurse, right? Y'all ever thought about that? They already deal with people who don't listen, people who only show up when something is wrong, and who suddenly find religion because, they about to die or some shit. Honestly, she's been managing a congregation her whole career, pretty much. She's been training for this. Good job. I'm proud of her. But let's be honest. The first Archbishop should have been Sister Mary Clarence from Sister Act. She fixed that choir, baby. Baby, she fixed the attendance. She brought in young people. She handled gang members. She turned the church into a community center. That's church leadership. And that's community outreach. Look, Whoopi Goldberg was doing ministry and witness protection at the same damn time. She deserved a promotion. She deserved that. But seriously, this is a big deal because the Archbishop of Canterbury is basically the symbol of the Anglican Church worldwide, not just in the UK. So this ain't just a UK thing. This affects millions of Anglicans around the world. And after 1,400 years, the Church of England finally got it right. They finally said, you know who's been holding this operation together the entire time? Women. It only took them a millennium and a half, but they finally got it right. So better late than never. Thank you, Anglican Church. Thank you, the UK. Yeah. I was recently at LaGuardia. I had a flight to Dallas. I waited in line for 3 hours, y'all. Something told me just to get up and go to the airport. I don't know. The Lord. I didn't sleep the night before because my flight left at 7:30. And sometimes, when you got to leave early, you just can't really sleep the night before. LaGuardia is not too far from my house. It's like a maybe 20-minute Uber ride. I got to the airport like around 4:10, 4:15. So I waited in line for about 2.5 hours, a little over 2.5 hours. By the time I got to my gate, they were boarding. So luckily I still had a little time since I'm a 32 ass bitch, back there where they making coffee and stuff. The government's not fully shut down, just Homeland Security, which is a pretty big one because that's TSA, the Coast Guard, FEMA, Secret Service, just light stuff like airports, disasters, national security. So this shutdown is basically a political standoff. The House Republicans are like, pass the budget now. We'll argue about immigration later. And the Senate Democrats is like, no, because if we funded Homeland Security, we want changes to ICE, Border Patrol rules, body cameras, training. So, both sides are doing that thing where nobody moves until like the other one moves. So basically, Congress is playing chicken with the federal government. Meanwhile, this actually affects not Congress. They still getting paid. It affects TSA, right? The airports is still going to be, the lines is going to be long as hell. The Coast Guard, they're not getting paid. The Secret Service, they're not getting paid. I heard. I need to check on that though. The people protecting the country are on layaway plans. This is the wild part. All of this is happening while the U.S. is dealing with Iran and global security issues. Don't this kind of feel like arguing about the electric bill when the house is on fire? Look, the government ain't shut down. The part that keeps the country from falling apart is. There's a Cardi B centered course at Howard, and I couldn't agree more because real bitches need to be studied. Don't y'all agree? You can now go to a historically Black university and get college credit for studying Cardi B. I think that's so cool. The class is called Cardi B, Am I the Drama? The Art, Production, Marketing, and Cultural Impact. This is actually a music, business, and marketing class using Cardi B's album rollout as a case study on how artists actually make money, how they build brands, how they control the internet. This ain't WAP studies. It's more how to become famous and rich without a regular job. Honestly, that might be the most practical class in America right now. What they're actually teaching in the class is marketing and branding, social media strategy, viral moments, artist development, label strategy, touring and production, and the cultural impact of Black women in hip hop. This class is marketing, it's business, it's sociology, it's gender studies. It's basically internet psychology with a Cardi B soundtrack. Meanwhile, some of y'all still paying student loans for a degree where nobody taught you how to negotiate a salary. So the funny part about this is, people always get mad when universities teach classes about rappers and social media and pop culture, but nobody complains about Greek mythology. When the fuck have we ever used Shakespeare or medieval farming? You know what I'm saying? Philosophy majors up here debating on whether a table exists. To me, this is actually like a very 2026 type of class because whether people like it or not, influence is an industry. Your personality is actually a damn industry, okay? Attention is an industry. Y'all gonna be mad at me for saying this, but some of y'all got degrees that can't compete with a woman who used to argue on Instagram Live and turned into a media empire. That's not luck, that's strategy. I got something to show y'all. Speaking of culture, okay, hold on. Let's see. Hey, ooh, it's like they all just like condoning this. Even the drama. Let me just $25 for African class. $25 for an hour of y'all just. Yeah, that was culture. Next, we got international. The United Nations just had a vote where countries said why can't I say this? The transatlantic slave trade should officially be recognized as the worst crime against humanity. And over 100 countries voted yes. And the United States, surprise, surprise, the United States voted no. And the reason the US gave, this is crazy, y'all. So they said slavery was not technically illegal at the time. So they don't believe countries should have to pay reparations now for some shit that was legal back then. Let's just think about this logic for a second, okay? Because that's like saying if something was legal when you did it, even if it was horrible, you don't have to fix the damage later. So let's break this down. I don't know if y'all realize this, but slavery was not just people being mean in history. A lot of people don't realize this. Slavery was a business. It made money. It built banks, railroads, universities, insurance company, shipping industries, in entire national economies we're talking about. So when people talk about reparations, they're not just talking about pain and suffering. That's not what it is. They're talking about money that was made from free labor for hundreds of years, 400 years to be exact. So imagine somebody forced your family to work for free for 250 years. They, with that time, they built a company off of that free labor. They passed that company down to their kids, and now their family is rich as fuck. They got generational wealth, and your family's still trying to catch up. That's what we're talking about. This is the repercussions from slavery. That's the conversation people really trying to have. But every time the conversation gets to money, everybody suddenly want to talk about history like it's just a sad story and not a business model. Slavery was a business model, and the only business in history where people still debating if the workers should get paid or not. That's crazy. Everybody agrees slavery was wrong, but when we start talking about if it was profitable, you know, they're going to give you a speech. They're going to give you a documentary. Oh, you're going to get a holiday before they give you a check. History is important till it becomes an invoice. You know, America, they got money to finance a war in 2 days, but reparations needs more research. They're not arguing about whether slavery happened. They argue about whether slavery still matters financially. Everything is a check. You know what I'm saying? Everything is transactional. V is for viral, and we got a couple of viral moments from this past week. And let's start with Drewski, though. First of all, I think people misunderstand what comedians actually do. Comedians are not here to be fair, okay? We're here to be observant. Comedy is basically professional noticing. Drewski didn't invent dressing up like characters. That's sketch comedy. That's SNL. That's In Living Color. That's Martin. That's Eddie Murphy. That's literally comedy history. So, you know, every time the internet acts like comedy just crossed a new line, I just be like confused because the line keeps moving depending on who feels uncomfortable. And culture has always had different lanes anyway. And what I mean by that, it's like how Black people can't name their dog something like Sir Wellington. That's not our ministry. That's, you know, white people got dogs named Theodore and Margaret and Winston and Elizabeth. Our dogs is named King and Tank. White people could tell their parents, oh, I'm just going to take a year off and get to know myself. Psh, Black parents going to help you find yourself immediately. All right. Yeah. You're going to find yourself at work on Monday. Yeah. Different cultures, different rules. And comedy comes from culture. So the rules of comedy are not always fair. They're cultural, you know? But once comedy hits politics, race, money, power, now suddenly everybody wants comedy to have rules and regulations. Comedy ain't never had no HR before. Comedy's supposed to be messy. Look, the problem is people always want comedy to be fair, and comedy's never been fair. Comedy's observation. Comedy's exaggeration. Comedy's telling the truth in a wig in this case. Because that's the truth. All that's the truth. So let's just break the story down because people are making this way more complicated than it really is. Drewski did a sketch called How Conservative Women in America Act. And in the sketch, he played a character that looked and acted very similar to Erica Kirk, who's the widow of the late Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA. So he had on a blonde wig, color contacts, prosthetics. Like this shit went viral. It was better than an SNL sketch. You know, the people said he was making fun of a grieving widow and it was too soon. But here's what I need people to understand. Drewski did not invent this. Dressing up like characters is literally sketch comedy. Eddie Murphy did white characters. Martin Lawrence did Shanae. The Wayans did whole movies playing different races and characters. SNL been doing politicians and wigs for 40 years. This is not new. The real reason people are mad is not because he wore a wig. Let's be clear. The real reason people are mad is because the character was political and specific. Comedy's fine until the joke's about somebody people feel protective of. That's when everybody started becoming the comedy police. Now, let's talk about the blackface argument. people keep saying, well, if a white comedian dressed up as a black woman, everybody would be mad. And this is where people start mixing history with comedy and acting like they're the same thing. And they're not. They're not. Blackface was not just dressing up as a black person, okay? Blackface came from minstrel shows in the 1800s where white performers they paint their skin like pitch black, not just brown. They draw big lips, they'd act stupid, they'd act lazy or criminal, just how they feel like black people acted. You know what I'm saying? They're making fun of enslaved black people in front of all white audiences. So that's not comedy. That was racism as entertainment, and it was used to make black people look less human and justify slavery and segregation. That's not comedy. That was part of the system. So that's why blackface is a problem, not just because of makeup. It's because of the history and the purpose behind it. So Drewski dressing up like a political personality for satire is not the same thing as a minstrel show, y'all. It's just not the same thing. That's like comparing a roast to bullying. Context matters. So here's the simplest way to understand this situation, okay? Comedy's always been about exaggerating people. Church ladies, politicians, rich people, broke people, Karens, rappers, news anchors, everybody becomes a character at some point, okay? The real rule of comedy has always been, if you're famous, powerful, political, or always on TV telling people how to live, you're now a character. That's the job risk. Like, at the end of the day, it's about who society thinks is allowed to be laughed at and who should be protected from jokes. And that line keeps moving depending on politics, money, power. But comedy's always been the same. Comedy looks at people, it notices what they do, it exaggerates it, and it holds up a mirror. That's what they don't like. You know what I'm saying? Most people don't actually hate comedy. They just hate when comedy holds the mirror in their direction. Look, look what Carrie Underwood had to say. This bitch. I'm never buying another Carrie Underwood.
Carrie Underwood, and I'm talking directly to your bobble-headed ass. Don't be stupid. I mean, you already look like a running joke. And I guarantee if we remove the touches, you, Caroline Levitt, and Erica Kirk would all be crater face triplets. It's always the blonde ones. It's always the fucking ones that look like the back of the goddamn kneecap. The fucking naked mole rats. Sun-deprived mutants that always have to go after Michelle Obama. We know y'all hoes only share one brain set. Michelle Obama is a fucking lawyer. Don't get it twisted. And is smart, beautiful, gracious. And she won't call you what I'll call you. You racist, saggy face, cottage cheese looking bitch. Now go play in fucking heavy traffic.
Oh, bars. Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up this situation. On to the next viral moment. Tiger. According to the PGA Tour, Woods announced he's stepping away from professional golf for a while because he needs help. He gonna seek some treatment. He gonna focus on his health after his recent car crash and a DUI-related arrest. Another one, by the way, in Florida. So his SUV flipped over and the police showed up and they said he was showing signs of impairment. So he blew a zero in the breathalyzer, but officers still found prescription pain pills and he refused a urine test. And he got DUI charges as a result. So of course he pled not guilty, but in a statement he said he understands the seriousness of this situation and that's what's causing him to step away to get help, which likely means he's going to miss the upcoming tournament, like the Masters. And that's the only time I watch golf is when Tiger plays. That's it. So this is not his first situation. Like I said, in 2017, he had a DUI arrest. He was asleep in his car, and he later said it was from prescription medication as well. And then also, y'all remember that famous 2009 car crash situation. And then in 2021, he had a serious crash that almost ended his career. So this is not new behavior for him. He might be the greatest golfer ever, but behind the scenes, he's also he had a very long day and a very long life, and his struggle with medication. I don't get it. I just don't understand why rich motherfuckers won't just call an Uber. Why? Why won't you just call an Uber? All jokes aside, here's the serious part. All right, Tiger Woods is one of the most successful athletes in history. He got money, fame, championships, legacy. He got everything he wanted, and he's still struggling with addiction. You know what I'm saying? Personal problems like a regular human being is just what he's dealing with. And I think it's always the part that people forget. You know, being rich does not fix that you're still a human being with problems. You know, being famous does not fix pain. Being successful does not fix addiction. So honestly, I'm kind of proud of him for stepping away and getting help. But, you know, it's kind of wild to think about this too. Just imagine how much Tiger Woods accomplished while he was a drunk. That's crazy, right? He's been drunk the whole time. He's been injured the whole time. He's been in scandals and car crashes the whole time. I don't know. That's what makes his career even crazier because because if that's Tiger Woods at his worst, imagine him if he's at peace. We're at I, issues. So this is a real issue affecting everyday people. And I think this is so cool, y'all. New York is cracking down on cashless businesses again. And honestly, you know, this is like one of the most New York stories ever. Basically, under New York law, stores are not allowed to refuse cash. If you walk into a store with actual American dollars, they're supposed to take it. And now the city and the state are really enforcing it and cracking down on, you know, hidden credit card holes, hotel junk fees. Isn't that crazy? You get a room and you think it's $39 a night and end up being 75 with all the fees and stuff. They just be sneaking shit in there. Yeah, you pay $377 by the time you leave that hotel. It was supposed to be $39. So this is less really about cash and more about, you know, not letting businesses quietly rob people with technology and shit. But there's also another layer to this that people don't talk about because cashless systems don't just affect poor people. They affect immigrants and undocumented workers and people who get paid in cash. It's still a bunch of under the table shit going on. You know what I'm saying? People don't trust banks. Who could trust the bank? So when everything goes to cashless, what you're really doing is you're slowly building a system where only fully documented, fully banked people can participate in the economy. Mm-hmm. That's why cash actually matters more than people think, because cash is freedom. Cash is privacy. Cash is mind your motherfucking business. Some parts of the economy are not digital, you know? Some parts of the economy are don't ask questions. And honestly, cash is the last form of money that still feels like money. Everything else just feel like numbers disappearing into the abyss. Not abyss, you know. I know you lying, girl. You wrong for that. Look at them parts. Ugh. Crochet braid behavior is bad decision making. You know what I'm saying? Badly parted. The shit was installed fast and it wasn't meant to last past the first sign of tension. It just looked like confusion and bad choices mixed together. That's crochet braid behavior. Somebody looks put together on the outside, but the decisions underneath don't make no damn sense. Let's talk about Chili from TLC because that baby gets this week's crochet braid behavior. So you mean to tell me, Chili, you mean the no scrubs, that Chili? Not Chili reposting conspiracy theories about Michelle Obama. People repost stuff by accident sometimes, benefit of the doubt. But I do have a question. Why is that in your algorithm in the first place? Your algorithm's supposed to be a reflection of what you watch and what you click and what you linger on. So if conspiracy theories about Michelle Obama is popping up in your feed at 11:47 p.m., ma'am, your algorithm ain't lying. You're guilty by algorithm, bitch. You might not have posted it on purpose, but your phone told on you. Your explore page testified against you in court, bitch. You done. I like the way Carrie Champion and Jamil Hill broke it down in this video. This clip is from their podcast, Flagrant and Funny.
TLC's base is primarily Black women. 92% of Black women voted for Kamala Harris. That means 92% of Black women voted against Donald Trump. Are you trying to tell me she's part of the 8% that voted for him? That feels like a different type of betrayal. That feels very personal to me. In this time that we live in, at least for me and morally and how I lean, that means you and I are not the same. That video she put together, it felt like she was lying.
I think she was. What I don't like about it is if you gonna stand on it, stand on it. To me, it says everything about what you voted for or what you support. The fact that you can't even say the shit publicly. That should tell you everything about what you have done. Just deal with the fallout as opposed to insulting everybody's intelligence and trying to pretend like what we see is something that ain't obvious.
But when you went to the Boyz II Men concert, remember, Jamel, we up there taking roses, and people are suggesting like, well, we've heard that there were MAGA leanings there.
I had not heard of this. And there was apparently some speculation that Wanye of Boyz II Men is a Trump supporter. After the concert, when we're talking to them, he got being all nice to us like, hey, and this and that. Our dear friend Angela Rye straight up confronted him about this. First question she had for him was, you support Donald Trump? And his answer, he used the expletive, was no. One thing, we was raw enough to check him about it and say, or not we, Angela was raw enough to be like, hey,
yeah, because we not that gangster.
She was, and she was not playing around.
I love that. So, yeah, they basically sum that shit up. And this is what always surprises me about celebrities. They think we don't have opinions, you know? Y'all rich, famous, own your own property. Of course, you got political opinions. Most rich people got political opinions that help rich people stay rich. That's not shocking. What's shocking is when you forget the internet can see what you repost and what you comment on and what you accidentally share at 2 a.m. when you're wearing reading glasses and trying to zoom in on a blurry meme. Crochet braid behavior is when your brand is waterfalls, but your algorithm is Fox News. Look, you might not be what you post, but you are definitely what your algorithm thinks you like. Baby, in 2026, you ain't even got to tell people who you are. Your algorithm will testify. Last call. At the end of the day, the news is just really stories about people with money and people with power and people trying to get both, because that's just kind of what makes the world go round, money and power. You know, everything else is kind of just details. And as regular people, I guess we're just somewhere in the middle trying to keep our jobs and keep our relationships and keep our mental health and keep our bank account from overdrafting, you know? My advice is just to stay informed, pay attention, make sure you have some opinions, but also remember to mind your motherfucking business sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Drink water, hydrate. Don't argue with these bitches and with strangers on the internet, especially before you brush your teeth in the morning. This has been Uncivilized, where the news gets jumped, the opinions are loud, and nobody here is running for office, so we can say whatever the fuck we want to say. Anyway, I'm not sure how to end this. I'm about to go lay down. The bed is right across the way. And, you know, I thank y'all for tuning in to Uncivilized. Thank you. Thank you.